Hey everyone, it's Andrew here, and welcome back to another update for seniors. Well, President Biden is expected to go live in just a few minutes, so we're waiting for him to go live. And in this video, he's supposed to address healthcare costs, inflation most likely, and with the fact that he's going to address lowering healthcare costs, we're hoping, not getting our hopes up, but we're keeping hope alive that he might actually mention the $1,000 debit card for seniors that Bernie Sanders is pushing that is supposed to be for healthcare costs. Now, to clarify again, even though it's supposed to be for healthcare costs, you could use it anywhere debit cards are accepted. And again, this is something Bernie Sanders is fighting for. Nothing is guaranteed. But with President Biden set to go live, discussing healthcare costs and discussing inflation, we're hoping he might potentially address this in this video, right? So it looks like he still hasn't gone live. So with that said, let's hop into the news and let's see what the talking heads are saying about inflation. So just to recap, inflation came in a lot hotter than people thought. Economists thought inflation would be 7% compared to last year, but in January, inflation rose to 7.3%, meaning overall things are 7.3% more expensive than they were last year. Now, compared to December, that was 7%, so technically things are getting worse. So let's jump into the news while we wait for President Biden. Let's see what the talking heads are saying regarding inflation, how this might affect seniors, the economy, the fact that interest rates are probably going to go up, and the stock market and bond market as well. So let's hop in really quick just for a couple of minutes while we wait for President Biden, and let's see what they had to say.
Validate a long-term strategy, you have to pick up things along the way that are add alpha. And one of the things we like is this INFL, which is the Horizon Kinetics Inflationary Beneficiaries ETF, fielding a portfolio of names that benefit from rising prices, principally in small and mid cap. It's 40% financials, 40% energy, and 20% commodity.
Was capital.
Okay, folks, I think Biden's about to go live. Let's take a look. Let's see if we have President Biden yet.
Type 1 diabetes. He's truly my hero for showing me how to live with type 1 diabetes. I'm thankful that insulin was invented.
Looks like this kid's going to talk for like maybe a minute, and then Biden's going to hop on. So I'm going to mute my mic so we can take a look and see what President Biden says. Stick around for after the speech.
I'm thankful that my parents...
Stick around for after Biden's speech. We're going to talk about exactly everything Biden said, what we expect to happen next with healthcare costs, Social Security benefits, potentially getting this check for seniors that Bernie Sanders is fighting for, and what happened with the inflation results, and what we expect to happen next as far as interest rates going up and inflation affecting seniors.
Thank you, Mr. President. I could have no more have done that when I was 12 years old than fly. I used to be a stutterer. I was scared to death. I would stand up and talk like that. And I can't tell you how proud I am of you. And your brother is equally as impressive as you are. He's standing there, he's sitting there 2 seats over. Shannon and Joshua, and by the way, happy birthday, man. He's going to be 13 years old, teenager, in a couple days. I want you to know that lowering the cost of prescription drugs is one of the reasons why I'm here with Abigail, your congresswoman. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. Lowering the cost of health care overall as well. Lowering the cost of prescription drugs is important, and giving families like yours just a little bit more breathing room makes a gigantic difference. Before I get into that, I want to say it's good to be here at Germanna School. And by the way, Abigail, if I want to know anything about community colleges in Virginia, I go to my wife. She teaches full-time and has for the last 9 years. She's in the classroom now at community college in Northern Virginia Community College. And she says, you know, the single best kept secret in America is community colleges. And it really is. They are so flexible, they can do so much. And if I had more time, which I don't, for all of you. I'd go into what we're going to try to do to increase the flexibility and the funding of community colleges for people. But it's great to be here with Abigail, with Congresswoman Spanberger. And in every chapter of her career, in every chapter, she's always been about one thing: service. Service. I also want to thank Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, your senators here, good friends, and worked closely with me on so many things when I was a senator and now as president and when I was vice president. But they needed to be in Washington today because there's votes in the Senate. I also want to thank Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, for two things. One, for answering my call when I asked him to come and be the secretary. I was worried he wouldn't. And how much he's helped us make so much progress in getting people vaccinated, getting health insurance, and making it more affordable health care. Look, health care is part of Abigail, Congresswoman, your Congresswoman's background. Back in 2017, she saw her representatives in Congress vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That was one of more than 100 Republican efforts. There were 100 Republican efforts since we passed it in our last administration to repeal the Affordable Care Act. But she knew that that was the exact opposite of what Central Virginia badly needed. You needed then and you need now more access to quality health care that is more affordable. So when I became President of the United States, that's what we did. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which made quality coverage through the Affordable Care Act more affordable than ever before, with families saving on average, have signed up, family on average $2,400 a year in their annual premiums. Compared to last year, the average monthly premium for Virginians has gone down more than 25%. Over 5 million people have gained coverage through the ACA since I became president. And as was mentioned by Javier, over 300,000 Virginians have signed up for health insurance during the open enrollment period here in Virginia. And we want to go further. Lowering prescription drug prices, get a cap on the amount people pay on Medicare, pay for prescription drugs, and to bring more clarity and fewer surprises when you get your bills if you've been hospitalized. So let me say a few words about each of these things now. With regard to prescription drugs, in America, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of any nation, developed nation in the world, the highest of any. And it's about 2 to 3 times higher than what other countries pay. Let me give you one example. An anti-cancer drug to treat leukemia and lymphoma costs $14,000 a month in the United States. The same exact drug, made by the same exact pharmaceutical company, is sold in France, and it's $6,000 a month. $6,000 in France. Same exact drug, same exact manufacturer, same exact amounts. Not 14, but 6. That's for a month's supply. Today, 1 in 4 Americans who need prescription drugs struggle to afford them. 1 in 4. Nearly 30% have skipped doses of essential drugs they're supposed to take. Others have simply not filled prescriptions that the doctor had given them, tried to use over-the-counter drugs or pills cut in half because they can't afford the cost of their prescription. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. That's just wrong. It's simply wrong, especially since it doesn't cost the drug companies nearly as much to make the drug or the research that went into them. Let me regress for just a moment here. I started when in the Obama-Biden administration an effort to deal with the cancer moonshot, to change the way in which we deal with cancer. And I'm reinstituting that in my administration now. And it was interesting. We had these hearings all over the United States, and one of the major events we used at Howard University, where there were 35 other events going on simultaneously with this. I subsequently met with the heads of, I think it was 13 drug companies. And I asked them, I said, if you found a cure for a particular cancer, how much you think you should be able to charge? And the response universally was what the market will bear. I said, hope I don't get elected president, because that's just not what you'll get. You should be treated more like a utility. You should be able to make a significant progress. Let's add up how much, and like they do in Germany, how much did it cost you, all the research and development, all the effort, add it all up, and then on top of that, add a significant premium for it, a profit of 20 to 30% above that, maybe in some cases more. But the idea you can charge whatever you want, it's just not going to happen in the United States of America if I have anything to do with it. Even if you think this doesn't affect you, it does, by the way. Everyone has less money in their pockets today because of high drug cost, and health insurance. And it's more expensive for everyone. And the reason it is this is what your insurance companies pay. All you have insurance. You're paying a heck of a lot more even if you're not using the drugs. Over the past decade, healthcare costs have gone up 50%. Prescription drugs are a big chunk of that. And there's a lot of things that almost every American can agree on. But I think it's safe to say that all of us, whatever our background, our age, where we live, whether we agree on prescription drugs, look, we all acknowledge they're outrageously expensive. And in many cases, bear no relationship to cost. Doesn't need to be that way. Josh and Shannon, it costs drug companies less than $10 to make a vial of that insulin, less than $10. That's what it costs. There's no reason you should be paying over $300 a vial for medicine you need every day to stay healthy and in many cases stay alive. As your mom said, you've got to pay $5,600 for prescriptions before your insurance even kicks in. You got to do the deductible. Shannon, you should have peace of mind of knowing that Joshua grows up and leaves your health care plan. He'll be able to choose a job without ever having to make a choice between which one has the particular health care coverage. You know, we're now in a position where we can cap copays for insulin at $35 a month. That's still a staggering profit, 3.5 times what it costs to produce the drug. You can do that with the stroke of we can do that with the stroke of a pen. In my Build Back Better legislation that with Abigail's leadership passed the House of Representatives, we can do that. Now we just have to get it through the United States Senate, and we're close. We can do even more to lower out-of-pocket prescription costs. Under my proposal, we will hold drug companies accountable for the absurd price increases. Here's how. Drug companies that increase their prices faster than the rate of inflation once the price is set will face a steep tax. This will help us end the days when drug companies can increase their prices with no oversight, no accountability, and no responsibility. We're saying to drug companies, you are finally going to become accountable when you raise prices on the American people. Accountability. You're still going to make a significant profit. And we can take additional steps to lower drug costs for people with Medicare, something Abigail has championed. Right now, the only thing Medicare is not allowed to negotiate the price of are prescription drugs. For everything else covered by Medicare, a doctor's visit, they negotiate, say, we'll pay no more than this much for a doctor's visit. So if the doctors don't want to take any Medicare patients, they don't have to. But if they have a Medicare patient, which there are millions of them, they cannot charge more than a certain amount. Crutches. We limit the amount of money they can pay for crutches. But Medicare can negotiate everything except drug prices. The only outfit they can't deal with. My plan is going to allow Medicare to negotiate the prices they're prepared to pay for each individual drug. If the company says I'm not going to sell it to you for that price, fine. But they're going to lose millions of customers. Millions of customers. What we're proposing is that we negotiate fair prices, one that reflects the cost of research and development and the need for significant profit, but still is affordable and has some relationship to the cost the drug company had. My plan also caps the amount that seniors on Medicare have to spend on prescription drugs each year total, so that if they're on Medicare, they'll not have to spend out of pocket more than $2,000 a year, no matter how many drugs they're taking. With drug companies, insurance companies, and medicine and Medicare picking up the rest of the cost. And just last month, to bring greater transparency to healthcare costs, my administration outlawed surprise billing. I've had a significant experience with hospital care. My son Bo was Attorney General of Delaware and won the Bronze Star in Iraq, dealing with being deployed overseas for a long time, for a year. You know, he came back with glioblastoma. He died. But you know what? The fact is that, and I was hospitalized a long time. I had a couple of years ago, cranial aneurysms, was hospitalized for a long time. And you can no longer get that surprise billings we got. If your health care plan did not cover a particular doctor, but you didn't even know you were being consulted, you get an extra bill for $2,000 to $5,000. They can't do that anymore. No more surprise billing. No more. Millions of hardworking Americans will no longer have to worry about unexpected medical bills, and Abigail has been making sure that we bring the same transparency to drug prices. A couple years ago, Abigail worked to pass a bipartisan legislation to make drug prices more transparent so you knew what you were paying for. And my administration is working with Abigail to make sure we enforce that. She also has been relentless in making sure the law that's been on the books that says pharmaceutical companies need to provide rural clinics and community health centers with discounts on prescription drugs, it's actually enforced. We're working together on that as well. I've long said health care should be a right, not a privilege in this country. This isn't a partner. Diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, they're not partisan issues. They're not Democrat or Republican. This is about whether or not you and your loved ones can afford the health care you need and the medicines you need to stay healthy. Because we need to ease the burden on working families by making everything more affordable and accessible. Look, again, a slight digression. Inflation is up. It's up. And coming from a family when the price of gas went up, you felt it in the household, you knew what it was like, it matters. But the fact is that if we are able to do the things I'm talking about here, it'll bring down the cost for average families. Bring down the cost for average families. I don't know why they keep moving all that, but the fact is they keep down the cost for average families. And look, the fact is that we're in a situation now where, you should have peace of mind. I know food prices are up, and we're working to bring them down. As I said, I grew up in a family where the price at the pump went up, you felt it, and I understand. But these things are necessary. We're working to bring down prices where they're not totally what the families, in fact, have to pay now. You still have to pay for child care. Child care is a cost for millions of families. You still have to pay your drug prices. You still have to pay for health care. You want to lower the cost for people, help them in those areas. So there's more than one family when it comes to raising their standard of living. I'm going to work like the devil to bring gas prices down, which I'm going to working to make sure that we keep strengthening the supply chain to bring the cost of energy and everything else and the goods that come to America down by helping them 24/7, by changing a whole range of things that, what's happened with the COVID has caused significant increase in prices in the supply chain. Because when it shuts down in another part of the world and you need that particular product in order to finish the build whatever you're working on, the price goes up exponentially, like for cars. There's a lot we can do to give families extra breathing room. We can do this with the cost of child care, making sure that you don't pay more than 7% of the family's income for care. It saves thousands of dollars for families. You know what these plans would mean for you and your family. We're already made a lot of stuff in the economy. Last year, more jobs were created in America than in any year in history. Unemployment has dropped more than any year in American history. We reduced the deficit, the federal deficit, while doing both those things by $300 billion. We lowered child poverty by nearly 4% in America, more than any year in American history as a consequence of the tax credit. And we're coming out of these challenges in the position of strength of any nation in the world. And I might add, and I note here to slow, that it does not raise anyone's, if you're making less than $400,000, you're not paying a single penny more in taxes. Not a single penny more in taxes. And it does not increase because it's paid for. It's fully paid for. I've had with major companies from Intel to General Motors to Ford to down across the board come to me and say they want to keep these programs going, increase corporate tax 24%, which they were supposed to be. It gets paid for. They understand the net effect on the economy is to grow it. We know that we invest in ourselves. There's no limit to what we can achieve. With leaders like Abigail and the brave folk like Shannon and Joshua, all of you know here today that all this progress we've made is just the beginning. Just the beginning. I promise you, we're going to do so much more. And it will not, I emphasize, it will not increase taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. And by the way, I'm a capitalist. You should make $1 million or $1 billion. Just pay a little bit of your fair share. We have over 53 companies in America that made $40 billion last year. Didn't pay a single penny in taxes. Not a single penny. It's not right. And so you find a lot of these corporations realize to grow and be competitive, it makes sense just to pay a little more in taxes at the top end in order to grow this economic growth we're creating. But bringing down the cost of health care, bringing down the cost of prescription drugs is an easy thing to do. It can be done legally with a stroke of a pen. We got to get Abigail's enthusiasm that she got it through in the House of Representatives and the Senate. So maybe dragging you over to the Senate to spend some time. But also, there's so much we can do. And I want to thank the family for being willing to stand up and share their story. And Dad, stand up so everybody knows who you are. I want to see. That good-looking guy back there, that's Dad. Every time I'd walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, his name was Andrew. He was an All-American football player out in Santa Clara.
All right, guys, let's recap everything President Biden just said. So just to recap, the point of this speech was to talk about the fact that they need to lower prescription drug prices and make healthcare more affordable in general, especially for people who are on Social Security and Medicare, right? And what he talked about is the fact that affordable equals access. And they want to make it more affordable to increase access. The problem is we have tons of seniors who can't afford their medications. They say 1 in 4 people in this country can't afford their medications, and that rate is even higher for seniors and for people who are disabled. And when that situation happens, you end up having people who are cutting their pills in half, not taking their medications at all, and basically you're decreasing access by not making these things affordable. Now, when we started this video, we talked about the fact that President Biden announced he wanted to give a speech on healthcare, and then we kind of got our hopes up and thought, well, maybe President Biden would address the debit card or stimulus check that Bernie Sanders wants to include for seniors because he wants to include that specifically for healthcare costs, right? So it kind of makes sense. Again, not trying to get our hopes up too much, but we're still keeping up hope. We're still keeping hope alive that with President Biden addressing healthcare, really focusing on increasing access by lowering costs, Bernie Sanders' idea makes sense, especially with inflation being so bad. And President Biden went on to say that healthcare overall has become too expensive, but specifically prescription drugs. He also kind of reminded us that the American Rescue Plan, that stimulus package that had the third stimulus check, actually included funding for Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. A lot of people don't realize that. And that actually helped lower premiums for millions of people who use the open market on the Affordable Care Act. So that was one step forward. And that's just kind of a good reminder that when Trump was in office, Republicans were essentially trying to reduce funding to the Affordable Care Act, essentially trying to get rid of it. And President Biden bolstered that. Next, he went on to say that bottom line here, folks, pain should not equal profit. And people who need medications, especially seniors who are struggling, should not be forced to pay insane amounts of money for medications because they're in pain or because they have a certain illness. And he's really kind of leaning into the fact that Medicare should be able to negotiate drug prices. And again, how are they not allowed to do so in the first place? Well, if you dig into it, really what happened is decades ago, they came to the conclusion that to reward pharmaceutical companies, they would not allow Medicare to negotiate and they would pay whatever the free market was allowed to pay. Basically, rewarding pharmaceutical companies for investing in the research and development that it takes to make these medications. Well, obviously that's gotten out of control because the profits have gotten completely insane, and all of those profits are used to either pay the CEOs or buy back their own stocks to then artificially increase their own stock prices, right? So he's really saying that Medicare needs to be able to negotiate drug prices, and this would help lower costs across the board. That would mean your premiums could go down, your co-pays could go down, Medicare medical costs across the board, even for people not on Medicare, could go down as well because Medicare would really create a downward pricing pressure on the market. And he went on to specifically say that one thing they're working on now in the Senate currently is a bill that would immediately lower prescription drug prices on specifically insulin. Now, if you're on insulin, let me know in the comments. I actually used to work in a pharmacy, and this is one of the most outrageously priced medications you could buy. Insulin across the board can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars per month. I've seen it firsthand. And when you have seniors on SSI, Social Security, or ssdi making $900 a month, and then their insulin costs $200 a month, that's 25% of their income for the month on their medication, on one medication. That is just not okay. So we need change. And again, this debit card by Bernie Sanders would be an immediate help. So that is the most current thing they're working on, trying to lower drug prices for insulin specifically. But then they're also trying to work on lowering prescription drug prices across the board. And Biden went on to highlight a few of the ways he's trying to do this. And one way is he wants to create an out-of-pocket max per year for people on Medicare of $2,000 per year. So no matter how many medications you're on, no matter if you take insulin, if you're on cancer medication, if you're on Medicare, your out-of-pocket total cost for prescriptions would be $2,000 per year. Now, again, that's still an insane amount of money, right? $2,000 is still, that's almost $200 per month, but it's a lot better than, $10,000 per month or whatever that current maximum is. So lowering that maximum out-of-pocket cost, that's one thing President Biden is trying to do. He also wants to allow, like I said earlier, Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. And he basically went on to say that healthcare is a right. Seniors and people who are disabled should not be priced out of getting their own medications just because pharmaceutical companies want to make billions and billions of dollars. So at the end of his video, his speech, he began to address inflation. And that's one thing we want to talk about on this video as well. Now, inflation data just came out this morning. They call that the CPI data. And if you guys are familiar with Social Security benefits and the way COLA works, Cpiw is used to calculate the annual COLA. So let's take a look and see what the inflation was in January. This data is always retroactive. So currently we're in February and the January data just came out. So inflation obviously affects everyone across the board, but it's really important for seniors because people who are on benefits, they depend on COLA adjustments, which are supposed to be tied to inflation. But as we're going to talk about in this video, that's not always the case. So inflation in December came in at 7%, and now inflation in January, which is the data that was just released, came in at 7.5%. inflation got even worse, and the COLA was 5.9%. So what that means is you essentially got a negative COLA of 1.6%. And that makes sense when you think about it. The COLA was 5.9%, inflation is currently at 7.5%. That means the difference between that is negative 1.6%. So instead of getting a true increase, really seniors got a decrease. And then on top of that, most seniors saw their SNAP benefits go down as well, because we all know when your Social Security benefits go up, your SNAP benefits a lot of times tend to go down. So it's kind of adding insult to injury, right? You had a negative COLA essentially, and then most people had their SNAP benefits go down as well. But let's quickly look at the inflation data. All items indexed rose 7.5% compared to January of last year and rose 6.6% compared to December. Now, if you look on your screen, these bar graphs show how inflation has been rising over the last 12 months, and it really peaked in June, then it went back down, and then peaked back in October, basically correlating with Omicron when that new variant came out. Supply chain issues got worse, and inflation got worse once again. Now we're trending down a little bit, but we're still at 0.6%, and again, even worse year over year at 7.5%. Now, let's take a look and see exactly which sectors are being hit the hardest. Now, really what's increasing cost the most is food and energy. Things like gas for your car, natural gas to heat your apartment, and electricity for your houses as well. These are the three main things that are increasing inflation. But one more thing, first of all, if you look, food specifically went up 0.9% compared to January, and that doesn't seem like a huge increase, 1%, month over month. Maybe your grocery bill went up by like $10, but those $10 add up, especially for people who are on benefits. And when you have a $10 increase month over month over month over month, before you know it, folks, a year later, your grocery bill is literally almost twice as much as what it used to be. And it's not just food. If you look at energy, energy is up 0.9% as well. And that includes things like gas for your car, gas for your house, for your heating, for your cooking. It includes things like electricity to keep your lights on. That is up 0.9% just from December as well. Now, one thing I really want to point out that's really important is the difference between Cpiw and the Cpiu. Now, the numbers you see here, like 7.5, all the inflation numbers you see on YouTube, on the news, on CNN, those numbers they're using is from the Cpiw. Now, when it comes to seniors and people on benefits like Social Security and SSI, the more important number for you is Cpiw, right? So there's Cpiu and Cpiw. Basically, the difference is Cpiw is more specific and more accurate when it comes to people who are either moderate income or lower income. Cpiu includes a more broad portion of the population, and that includes people who are high income or extremely high income, and we know those outliers tend to throw off the average. So for our purposes, for the purposes of COLA, Cpiw is what's used. So for this community, the best thing we can use is Cpiw as well. So let's take a look and see how Cpiw, meaning inflation for people who are moderate to low income, let's see how inflation affected them. Was it worse than Cpiu or was it better? Well, folks, it was worse. So like I just said a few minutes ago, CPI, inflation basically came in at 7.5%, but inflation for those who are moderate to lower income came in at 8.2%. Now, why is that? Now, that's generally because people who are lower income, they tend to spend more money on things like energy, used cars, repairing their used cars, things like that. And these things have been hit by inflation the most. Now, currently experts are thinking that inflation is going to continue to get worse for at least the next 6 months, and then hopefully things will start to taper down. So this means seniors are really going to be in a pinch, folks. And I'm not here to try and give you bad news. I'm just here to give you the news as it is. And really, if anything, this is just more reason why Democrats and Bernie Sanders and President Biden should approve that stimulus check for seniors that Bernie Sanders has been fighting for, right? He calls it a debit card. He's called it a stimulus check. Whatever you want to call it, more than ever, seniors and people on benefits need this $1,000 debit card. And folks, Let me know in the comments if you agree. This inflation data just goes to show you that things are only going to get a little more difficult over the next few months. And with President Biden's speech, him saying, he wants to lower prescription drug prices, he wants to lower healthcare costs, he wants to do all of these things across the board, that's wonderful. But that is going to take months, if not years, to fully implement, right? We know how the system works. So please, what we really need now is immediate assistance. And there's so many ways they could do this. They could do the debit card directly. They could do tax credits. So think about it. Think of tax credits in the form of, let's say your energy went up or food went up. They could give a tax credit at the end of the year that specifically helps you with things that are being affected by inflation, right? Think of it as essentially an inflation tax credit. These are things that President Biden should be focusing on, and these are ideas that would help the American people more directly and more quickly. When you think about the monthly stimulus checks for families, those are child tax credits, right? Tax credits being given to you just for having a child, and then instead of having to wait until tax season, they're being given to you proactively as a monthly stimulus check. President Biden could do the same thing for seniors or the same thing for people who are low income due to inflation. An inflation tax credit, in my opinion, is the best thing President Biden could do at this point. But folks, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I also want to point out that inflation, you probably are going to see in headlines, once again, it's a record year, right? And this chart here shows you the inflation year data over the last 50 years. And if you look here, 1982 was 6.3%. So the last year we had a higher inflation rate than now was literally 1981. And if you look at that chart, that was basically a 10-year run of insane inflation. And then it started to go down because interest rates went up. And then we finally controlled inflation. And that's what we're currently expecting to happen. We're expecting the Federal Reserve to increase interest rates. They're actually going to have a meeting in about a week discussing what they might be doing next and kind of what their sentiment on inflation is. And then in March, they're expected to make a final decision as to whether or not they're going to immediately increase interest rates or wait until the summertime to reassess it again. Now, interest rates affect seniors as well for various reasons. On the one hand, if seniors have personal debt, things like a personal loan, credit cards, those things become more expensive to pay off. Now, on the other hand, if you're a senior who has assets, like if you have bonds and stocks and things like that, generally when the interest rates go up, your bond yields go up as well. Now, that's a little confusing topic, but basically overall, interest rates going up can be painful in the beginning, but long term, it could help seniors in the long term, especially if you hold investments like bonds, right? So, folks, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Do you think President Biden is doing a good job on inflation? Do you think he's doing a good job with trying to lower healthcare costs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that said, let's take a quick look and jump into the news. And let's see what they're saying about what President Biden just said and potentially controlling healthcare costs and inflation.
I have no doubt.
Okay, let's see here. All right, let's see. All right, let's do a few minutes in the comments, folks. Let's take a look. We'll answer some questions in the comments. Chi said, I don't think the president is doing his job. So many promises and nothing. Come on, people. Homeless without food, no lights. Chi, I agree with you. Not to take sides politically, but they really need to do a better job to help the American people more quickly. And they honestly really dropped the ball, especially when it comes to inflation. I mean, they spent the last year saying that inflation was transitory. And again, I don't want it to sound like I'm picking sides, like I'm picking either Republican or Democrat. That's not my job on this channel. My job is to really stick up for seniors, people who are on benefits, and be a voice for you guys, because quite honestly, these aren't things that I'm just thinking up on my own. These are things that were promised on the campaign trail. They promised to do checks for seniors, for people on SSI, ssdi, increase benefits across the board, expand Medicare, lower Medicare costs. All of these things were part of the overall promise to make sure that not a single senior would be forced to live in poverty, folks. So not trying to attack President Biden, but just really trying to keep him to his word. Now, Julie says, Biden stating he is a capitalist doesn't impress me. I would vote for Bernie Sanders in a heartbeat. He at least shows concern and compassion for the American people in need. Shana said, food is high and they need to hear us out, period, point blank. We can't work, so we need the help. Completely agree. And if you're on benefits, you've probably worked for 40 years. You shouldn't have to work at this point, right? Now, Eileen said, everyone wait until your home insurance bill, then you will be upset. Yeah, that's something we've talked about on this channel as well. Insurance is expected to go up as well. Let's try and pull that up really quick. Let's see here. Insurance, inflation. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Inflation is pushing car insurance rates higher. Let's take a look. Inflation is pushing car insurance prices higher, with some eyeing a 17% boost. So guys, there are a lot of things that still haven't even been hit by inflation. When you think about, prescription drug prices going up, some of these things are delayed, like insurance premiums going up. Think about your insurance. Most people are on a 6-month to a year contract, just like your lease if you rent an apartment. And after about a year, when that lease expires, most things are expected to go up as well. So inflation is going to hit things like car insurance. Companies are reporting trying to increase prices by 10 to 20%. Then we have rent going up as well. Overall, rent has gone up 4% year over year, but we still have millions of people who are still locked into their previous leases and still haven't seen these price increases, right? So although a lot of experts think that inflation might have peaked, this 7.5% inflation might be the highest we'll get, a lot of experts are saying, pump the brakes. There's still a lot of things, kind of this delayed inflationary effect, like things that are on contracts that will expire in the summer, like insurance premiums, like you said, home insurance, your rent. Rent is expected to go up even more as well. So on the one side, we're probably going to get a larger COLA in 2023, so that's a slight silver lining. But the problem is we already got shafted with the last COLA, right? Like I said earlier in this video, your COLA was 5.9%. Then inflation went up to 7.5%, which was the current reading. So you essentially got a negative COLA. So like I've said before in previous videos, what I think President Biden should do is declare a state of emergency for seniors, a retirement crisis emergency. And by declaring those states of emergency, that will unlock certain executive privilege, which could then give President Biden the power to do a 10% COLA, an emergency 10% COLA for seniors, or an emergency stimulus check for seniors. Either one of those would be a good idea. And this is similar to what Trump did with the unemployment boost, like we talked about before. The unemployment boost expired. Trump used executive action and then used FEMA funds to redirect that and use that for people on unemployment. And that really just brings up memories of the fact that people on unemployment got $300 per week, not per month, per week, for almost 2 years. So if we could do that for people on unemployment, we should be able to do that for seniors as well. And guys, let me know in the comments if you agree. So really quick, guys, let me see if I can pull up a video. I want to see a little bit more about inflation, and then we'll might be hopping back into the comments. But let's take a look at this clip here.
Okay, so biggest problem.
Let's see. Okay. It's not going to work. Let's see. Let me know in the comments, guys. Are you happy with what President Biden's doing? Do you think he's doing the right thing by addressing healthcare costs? Do you think it's actually going to get done? Or do you think things are just taking entirely too long? All right, so it looks like Biden addressed inflation as well. This article says, Biden says consumer inflation report shows budgets of Americans are being stretched. Right, and again, not to pick sides politically, but if they didn't waste an entire year saying that inflation was transitory, they could have addressed inflation a year ago, and maybe they would be helping the American people now. Because we all know, if they want to address inflation now, it's going to take them probably a year just to do something, and then another year for those things to really, come into effect. So they dropped the ball on that one for sure. And now President Biden is saying that he's acknowledging the fact that Americans' budgets are being stretched. So, U.S. President Joe Biden said the January CPI inflation index issued on Thursday was a reminder that the budgets of Americans are under real strain, adding that his administration was using every tool it has to tackle the issue. Well, quite frankly, not every tool. Like we've had AOC and Jayapal, two Democratic liberals, saying that he should be using executive action. So, executive action is a tool. President Biden is not using that tool, but yet he comes on here and says we are using every tool. So, maybe he'll come out soon and use executive action, but as of now, we're not really seeing any real, data or proof as to that being the case. He also went on to say that we have been using every tool at our disposal, and while today is a reminder that Americans' budgets are being stretched in ways that create real stress at the kitchen table, there are also signs that we will make it through this challenge. Okay. That's not very reassuring. So, U.S. consumer prices rose solidly in January, leading to the biggest annual increase in inflation in 40 years, fueling financial market speculation for a 50 basis points interest rates from the Federal Reserve next month. So, basically, what they're saying is interest rates are basically at 0% from the government standpoint, and they're expected to raise it from 0 to 0.5. So, that'll have some effects. You probably won't notice an effect personally, but that'll mostly have effects on things like the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, mortgage loans. So if you're in the market to buy a house, that's about to get more expensive as well. So then there's also kind of the question as to how will that affect real estate prices? Interest rates going up, will it just kind of bend down the increase in prices? Will prices of houses still go up, just not as much? Or will they flatten out? Or could we actually see a dip in real estate prices? I know a lot of people in the comments told me they actually recently bought a house over the last 6 months. And a lot of seniors, surprisingly, still buy houses in retirement. Actually, the house me and my wife live in, we bought this off of a retired couple, and they went and bought another house. They just downsized. And, if you're in the market for a house, you might be worried that, first of all, that's about to get more expensive with interest rates going up. But secondly, if you actually bought a house recently, some seniors are worried that their nest egg might actually go down as well. Because your house, if you have a house, if you're fortunate enough to have a house, which I know not everybody does, that's your biggest nest egg. And if you just bought a house in the last year, interest rates are now going up. Some people are worried that that's going to push home prices down, and some seniors could see their nest egg go down as well. Now, before we end this video, guys, let's just wrap up, take a look, let's see what's happening in the news. The average household is spending an extra $250 a month due to high inflation, but middle-aged Americans are paying even more. Literally exactly what we say on this channel, right? Those who are older are being hit harder by inflation. Now, the average household is spending $250 a month extra due to inflation, and that adds up to $3,000 per year. Guys, think about it. People on benefits get $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, maybe if they're lucky, $15,000 a year. And they're spending an additional $3,000 a year because of inflation. Now, if that doesn't warrant a stimulus check, I don't know what does. And guys, let me know in the comments if you agree. Now, this article goes on to say that older Americans are being hurt even harder. So let's take a quick look. Inflation is running hot, but not everyone is feeling the burn. Not Bernie burn, which would be better. Now, the latest edition of the inflation index showed that inflation was running at a pace of 7.5% in January, representing a 40-year high. The cost of everything from rent to dairy to used cars rose in January, showing how inescapable the run-up in consumer prices has been. Everything is being affected by inflation. So just how much has all this inflation cost Americans? Well, a 7% pace of inflation, with the average rate of inflation being 2.1% in previous years. Based on that comparison, the average household is spending $250 per month extra because of inflation. Now, the impact differs based on age, and people between the ages of 45 and 54 have borne the largest brunt of high inflation, seeing their expenses increase by over $300 per month. So the average American has seen their costs go up by $250 per month, but those who are between 45 and 54 years old have seen their costs go up by over $300 per month. Now, for seniors who are 65 and older, their costs have gone up by about $200 per month. Now, I personally would probably disagree with this report. I don't know if that takes into account things like medications, things that affects elderly people or seniors more than people who are between 45 and 54, but that's kind of what this article said. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look here. So stock market looks like it's pretty much flat as well. Let me know if you guys are interested in the stock market. That's something we've been talking about every now and then on this channel as well. Let's see. All right, guys, we're going to hop into the chat really quick, and then we're probably going to wrap up this stream. So Dana said, I would love to get $15,000 a year. I just get $10,000 a year. Yep. Dana, most people on my channel, just based off of what I've seen in the comments, seem to get somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 per year. That seems to be the norm. I'd say the average is probably about $1,000 a month. So obviously, that is why we need to see an increase in benefits. Tammy said, yes, we need a stimulus check. Kenneth said, my SSI went up $40. Then they cut my food stamps $20, and my other benefits went down by $60 from the last 2 years. Prices went up. Yeah, exactly. So this is what we've been talking about on this channel. So Kenneth said his benefits went up by $40, but then his food stamps got cut by $20. So there he got a $20 increase. But everything went up with inflation higher than the COLA, right? COLA was 5.9. Inflation's at 7.5. So really, you ended up losing when it came to the COLA situation. Again, this is why we need either a stimulus check or an emergency COLA increase for everybody on benefits. Now, Wilma said, why does a person living in $500 a month have to pay Part B plan the same amount that someone getting more money get? Yeah, no, I agree. That needs to be addressed as well, Wilma. Let's see. Shana said, I'm 42 years old, disabled with no help. What they gave us was coins, not bucks. I'm talking about SSI and ssdi who are like me. Yeah. And Shana, if you're on SSI, they're supposed to be doing the SSI Restoration Act, which would make sure that everybody on SSI gets at least the federal poverty level, which currently would be about $14,000 to $15,000 per year, almost doubling your SSI benefit. Again, that's another thing we're waiting for it to happen. Again, obviously, it's taking entirely too long. So, folks, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. This was Biden's speech talking about inflation and lowering medical costs, specifically prescription drug costs for people on Medicare. And just a quick reminder, folks, that if you want to support my work, consider subscribing to my second channel, The Andrew Paulo Show. So if you go on YouTube, search The Andrew Paulo Show. On this channel, we have a live bingo night every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Central. It's just for fun, but we also give away stimulus checks just as a thank you for supporting our work. And my wife, Sarah, is going to be on there sometimes as well. So the only thing is you have to have your own bingo cards at home to play with us live. And then you can chat with us in the chat. Let us know when you won bingo. And my card will be on screen so you could follow along with me and see when I won bingo as well. So with that said, folks, that's going to be about it for this update. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on what Biden said. And let me know if you like this format. This is a new format we're trying out. It's definitely easier to connect with you guys. So personally, I've been enjoying it, but let me know if you enjoy it as well. And with that said, folks, thank you so much for watching. Stay strong out there, and we'll see you on the next one.